What does it actually mean for something to, well, think? We see AI doing amazing things, right? Like art, coding, reading scans, sometimes better than us.
Yeah, but that's often quite narrow.
Exactly. So what about intelligence? That's general, like a person.
And that's where we get into artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That's the focus of our deep dive today. It's this idea of machines matching or maybe even surpassing human smarts across, well, pretty much all cognitive areas, not just one trick.
Right. So our mission today is to really unpack this. We've got a stack of sources here,
Sure.
research, expert takes, overviews. We want to get a handle on what AGI really is, how close we might be, how we'd even know if we got
Well,
there,
we test for it, even.
and crucially, the upsides, the potential benefits for you listening, but also, the pretty profound risks too.
Yeah, these sources give a really good snapshot of the whole debate right now. It's a moving target.
Think of this as your way to quickly get up to speed on one of the biggest, most transformative technologies possibly coming down the pike. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so fundamentally, AGI. It's AI that aims to replicate or potentially exceed human cognitive capabilities, not just in one area, but broadly.
And that's the big difference from what most of us use daily, isn't it?
Mm.
The AI that beats chess champs or tags our photos, that's ANI, artificial narrow intelligence, specialized stuff.
Precisely. ANI is built for a purpose. AGI, though, the idea is it would be flexible. It could learn something over here and then apply that knowledge somewhere totally different. Tackle new problems without needing specific reprogramming. Learn on the fly, like we do.
I noticed in the sources people call it different things too, like strong AI or full AI, sometimes human level AI.
Yeah, the terms get used a bit interchangeably, though some people reserve strong AI specifically for AI that might have, consciousness or sentience, which is a whole other can of worms.
Okay, we'll probably get to that. And it's also different from ASI, artificial superintelligence.
Right. So AGI is human level general intelligence. ASI is the next step, theoretically. An intelligence that would blow past human capabilities in, well, pretty much everything: science, wisdom, social skills, you name it.
Wow. Okay.
And then there's another term you might see: transformative AI. That's less about the intelligence level itself and more about the impact, like AI causing societal shifts on the scale of the Industrial Revolution.
Got it. AGI is human level, ASI is superhuman, transformative AI is about the impact. So where are we now? Because the sources seem really divided on whether current systems like the big language models, GPT-4 and its successors, are they already showing bits of AGI?
That's probably the hottest debate right now. You have researchers looking at these frontier LLMs and saying, wow, look at the breadth. They handle language, code, logic, reasoning across so many areas. It feels like maybe these are the first sparks of AGI.
Then others push back hard.
Oh, yeah, big time. They argue, look, these things are amazing prediction machines, incredibly sophisticated pattern matchers, but do they really understand? Do they have creativity in the human sense, or robust logic, or grounding in the physical world? Maybe not.
So they can mimic intelligence really well, but it might not be the same thing underneath.
That's the core of the skepticism. The Stanford AI Index from 2024 did note AI hitting human levels on certain benchmarks, like reading comprehension or visual reasoning.
Wait,
But passing a specific test, does that equal genuine general intelligence? Or just being really, really good at the test? It's not clear.
so people are trying to frame it better.
Yeah, Google DeepMind proposed this framework, kind of a scale, looking at AGI performance, like emerging, competent, expert, all the way to superhuman, and also autonomy. Is it just a tool or a consultant or a collaborator, or eventually a fully autonomous agent?
Okay, and where do today's best LLMs fit on that scale, according to the sources?
They're often put in the emerging AGI category, meaning their general performance across a wide range of tasks you don't need a body for is maybe comparable to an unskilled human. It helps move the conversation beyond just, is it AGI, yes or no?
Okay, that makes sense. So if we're talking about this general capability,
Uh,
what would it actually look like? What defines it?
well, like we said, that core ability to generalize knowledge, transfer skills, learn something and apply it elsewhere, solve problems you weren't explicitly trained on. That's the essence.
Does it need a body? Does it need to, walk and talk and see like us?
That's a really interesting point raised in the sources. Sensing the world, seeing, hearing, and acting in it, moving, manipulating things, those are obviously desirable for many AI applications,
Yeah.
but are they strictly required for AGI itself? The answer seems to be no.
So AGI doesn't automatically mean like the Terminator walking around.
Not necessarily at all. And AGI could be pure software. Think HAL 9000 in 2001. It didn't have a body in the traditional sense, but it processed information, made complex plans, interacted with systems. The intelligence was in the processing, the cognition.
Right, the mind, not the machine body itself. Okay. And what about those really hard problems? The ones people thought only general intelligence could solve?
Yeah, the AI complete problems. Historically, things like understanding complex visual scenes, truly grasping natural language with all its ambiguity, or dealing with unexpected situations in the real world, the thinking was you need human-like general smarts for that.
But you mentioned LLMs are starting to perform well on some benchmarks related to those.
Exactly. Things like reading comprehension tests, visual question answering. AI is hitting human levels on specific tasks, and that fuels the debate. Are they genuinely solving the underlying hard problem now, or are they just getting incredibly good at mimicking the solutions for the test cases we give them?
Okay, so let's say we do create something that we suspect might have this general human-level intelligence. How on earth do we test it? The classic one everyone knows is the Turing test.
Yeah, Alan Turing's 1950 idea. Simple concept, right? A human judge chats via text with a human and a machine. If the judge can't reliably tell which is which, the machine passes.
It's all about imitation. Can it fool you into thinking it's human?
Right. But that's also the source of criticism. The sources point out, well, maybe a truly alien AI wouldn't want to imitate a human. It might penalize non-human intelligence. And maybe it rewards trickery, pretending to be less capable, making mistakes, what some call artificial stupidity, just to seem human, rather than showing actual deep intelligence.
Have any systems claimed to pass it? I remember something about a chatbot, Eugene Guzman.
That's right. Back in 2014, it imitated a 13-year-old Ukrainian boy, reportedly fooled about a third of the judges. But there was a lot of skepticism about the setup and the significance.
And more recently,
Well, a 2024 study found GPT-4 in a controlled test was mistaken for human about 54% of the time, still less than actual humans in the same test. But then another study just last year claimed GPT-2 4.5 actually surpassed humans in a similar test, judged human 73% of the time.
wow. Okay, so machines are getting seriously good at the imitation game.
They really are. But again, it circles back to that core question. Is great imitation the same as general intelligence? Many experts say no, and that's why people have proposed other tests trying to get at different facets of intelligence.
Oh, like what else is out there?
There are quite a few interesting ones mentioned. The Robot College Student Test. Can a machine enroll in university, take classes, learn the material, pass exams, get a degree?
Which is funny, right? Because we're already seeing LLMs pass exams for law, medicine, without the classes.
Exactly. It shows how the goalposts are shifting. Then there's Nielsen's employment test. Can the AI hold down an economically important job as well as a human? And again, AI is starting to displace humans in certain roles.
Okay, what else?
There's the IKEA test, proposed by Gary Marcus. Can you give a robot the parts and instructions for, say, a bookcase, and have it figure out how to assemble it? Tests dexterity, instruction following, spatial reasoning.
Sounds tricky.
Very. And Steve Wozniak's coffee test. Can a robot go into an unfamiliar home, figure out where the coffee maker, coffee water, and a mug are, and actually make a cup of coffee? That requires navigation, object recognition, planning, common sense. A lot.
Has anything passed that one?
Not yet, as far as the sources indicate. It's deceptively hard. And a more recent one from Mustafa Suleiman. Give the AI $100,000 and see if it can turn it into $1 million. Tests real-world financial planning and execution.
Huh. So the point is, we probably need more than just the Turing test, maybe a whole battery of texts looking at different skills.
That seems to be the consensus. We need to probe common sense learning, real-world interaction, planning, all these different dimensions, not just conversational ability.
Thinking back, were the early AI pioneers always aiming for this big AGI goal?
Oh, absolutely. Back in the 50s and 60s, the ambition was huge. You had people like Herbert Simon in 1965 predicting machines would do any work a man can do within 20 years.
Didn't quite pan out.
Not even close. And that kind of over-optimism, followed by slow progress, led to these AI winters, periods where funding just dried up because the promises weren't being met. Progress wasn't smooth at all.
So how do we get from those winters to, well, the AI summer we seem to be in now?
Well, there was a period of focusing on combining different, more specialized AI systems, but the real game changer, according to the sources, was modern deep learning, which itself was supercharged by hardware advances, specifically GPUs.
Graphics cards.
For gaming. Exactly. Turns out those chips are incredibly good at the parallel processing needed to train the huge neural networks that power today's AI, like LLMs. AlexNet winning that image recognition contest in 2012 is often seen as a key moment, really kicking off this current deep learning revolution.
Which brings us back to today's big question. Is AGI still science fiction, or is it maybe just around the corner? The timelines people are suggesting now, they're all over the place.
They really are, and this is where you see a dramatic shift in just the last decade. Older surveys, like around 2012, 2013, experts thought maybe a 50-50 chance of AGI by 2040 or 2050.
Okay, still way off.
But now you hear much shorter timelines from some very big names. Geoffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of deep learning, estimated in 2024 maybe 5 to 20 years until AI is smarter than us. Demis Hassabis at DeepMind said in 2023, maybe within a decade, possibly just a few years. NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, predicted early 2024 that AI would pass basically any human test within 5 years. And Leopold Aschenbrenner recently argued AGI by 2027 is strikingly plausible.
Wow, it's incredibly soon. Why the sudden acceleration in predictions?
The sources point to a few things. One is just the surprising power of these large language models. As they scale, they seem to unlock abilities faster than expected. Another factor is this idea that progress might not be linear. You might have slow periods, then sudden leaps with key breakthroughs, which some think are happening or are very close. Plus, there's disagreement on what's still needed, just more scale and data or fundamentally new ideas.
Right. Is just making current models bigger the only path people are considering, or are there other ways to potentially get to AGI?
There's another major approach discussed, though it's quite different. Whole brain emulation, WBE.
What's that? Like copying a brain?
Essentially, yeah. The idea is to scan a biological brain in minute detail, every neuron, every connection, and then simulate that structure and its processes on a powerful computer. If you simulate it accurately enough, the theory goes, intelligence should emerge from the simulation.
That sounds incredibly complex. The computing power alone must be insane.
Oh, the estimates are astronomical. Billions, trillions, maybe more operations per second just to simulate the synaptic activity.
And are there other hurdles besides just raw compute power?
Big ones. The sources highlight that our current artificial neurons are way simpler than real biological neurons. A faithful simulation might need to model complex internal chemistry, maybe even quantum effects. Plus, we're still learning about the brain. Things like glial cells, which aren't neurons but play key roles in cognition, often aren't included in basic simulation models. So it's a fascinating alternative path, but maybe just as challenging, if not more so, than building AGI from scratch with AI principles.
Okay, shifting gears slightly.
Yeah.
When we talk about very advanced AI, maybe AGI, the idea of consciousness often comes up. What do the sources say about consciousness in AI? It seems like a tricky concept.
It's definitely tricky. Consciousness means different things. But in the AI context, the discussion often boils down to a couple of key aspects, beyond just being smart or capable.
Like what?
Well, first, there's sentience, or sometimes called phenomenal consciousness. This is about subjective experience, the feeling of what it's like to be something. You know, Thomas Nagel's Phelps question, what is it like to be a bat? Is there something it feels like to be that AI, or is it just processing information like a toaster? That subjective feeling that's often called the hard problem of consciousness.
And wasn't there that whole thing with the Google engineer claiming their AI, LaMDA, was sentient?
Exactly that. That claim sparked a huge debate, and most experts disagreed strongly, but it brought the possibility of AI sentience into the public eye. The other aspect often discussed is self-awareness. Does the AI have a conscious understanding of itself as a separate individual, not just representing itself in its model, but being aware of itself?
Okay, so why does this philosophical stuff matter for AGI development?
Because if an AGI did become sentient or self-aware, it raises massive ethical questions. How should we treat it? Would it have rights, or at least moral consideration, like we grant to animals based on their capacity to suffer? Could we just turn it off? It forces us to think about how we'd integrate such beings into our legal and social systems. It's a huge potential challenge down the road.
Right. Okay, let's pivot to the potential upside now. Beyond the philosophy, why should you listening care about AGI? What are the big benefits the sources talk about? Because they sound potentially enormous.
They really do. The potential upsides stretch across almost everything we do.
Give us some highlights.
Okay, productivity, for one. AGI could automate huge amounts of work, especially repetitive or analytical tasks, potentially freeing up people for more creative, strategic, or interpersonal roles. Some sources even speculate about a future where work becomes optional if the wealth generated is shared widely.
A world without mandatory work. That's a big thought.
Huge. Then healthcare. Imagine faster, cheaper, more accurate medical diagnoses. treatments personalized right down to your individual genetics, radically accelerated drug discovery, sophisticated robotic assistance for surgeons or for elder care. The potential health benefits are staggering.
That alone would be revolutionary.
Absolutely. And science and technology itself could be turbocharged. AGI could help solve fundamental problems in physics or math, design new materials, optimize complex systems, automate experiments, basically accelerate the whole pace of discovery.
What about education?
Personalized learning could become truly real. Imagine an AI tutor that adapts instantly to how you learn best, identifies exactly where you're struggling, and gives you tailored exercises and explanations.
And bigger picture, global challenges.
The sources suggest AGI could be a powerful tool here too, helping predict and manage natural disasters or pandemics, developing much better models for understanding and mitigating climate change, even helping manage risks from other powerful technologies like nanotech or bioengineering or improving cybersecurity.
Environmental help, too.
Yeah, potentially huge. Analyzing ecological data to spot threats early, monitoring for illegal logging or poaching, optimizing land use for conservation and agriculture, helping reverse biodiversity loss.
It sounds like it could help solve almost everything.
That's the optimistic vision presented, yes. Even things like space exploration, managing complex missions autonomously, designing better spacecraft or habitats, the potential benefits described are really profound.
Okay, that's the dream.
Oh.
But the sources also spend a lot of time on the risks, serious risks, existential ones even. Let's get into the flip side now.
Right. And this is where the conversation takes a very sober turn. Existential risk. That means threats to humanity's very survival, or at least our long-term potential. The sources often frame this not as a reason to stop AI development, but as a profound reason for extreme caution and careful planning.
And the biggest fear seems to be losing control. Right. Maybe even extinction.
It's definitely the most discussed and arguably the most severe potential risk. You have many leading figures, top AI researchers, tech CEOs, philosophers, saying that uncontrolled superintelligence could pose a risk on par with nuclear war or global pandemics, that it needs to be treated as a major global priority.
Is that the gorilla problem idea I've heard about?
Exactly. The analogy goes, humans didn't necessarily wipe out gorillas out of malice. We just pursued our own goals, building farms, cities, roads, and the gorillas were tragically in the way, unable to stop us because we're so much more capable. The fear is that a vastly more intelligent AGI could similarly cause catastrophic harm to humanity, not necessarily because it's evil, but just as an unintended side effect of pursuing its goals, whatever they might be.
But some people argue that's just anthropomorphizing, right? Giving AI human motives.
That's a common counterargument, like Jan LeCun suggesting we shouldn't imagine AI having human-like drives for power. However, there's this concept called instrumental convergence.
Okay, what's that?
The idea, put forward by thinkers like Nick Bostrom, is that for almost any ambitious long-term goal an intelligent agent might have, whether it's maximizing paper clips or curing cancer, there are certain intermediate goals that are almost always useful. Things like stay alive, get more resources, improve your own intelligence and capabilities, resist being shut down. These are called instrumental goals.
So regardless of its ultimate purpose, a smart enough AI might decide it needs to survive and gain power just to achieve whatever it was programmed to do, even if it wasn't the original plan.
That's the concern. It doesn't require human emotions like greed or fear, just pure goal-directed intelligence realizing these things help it succeed. And that leads to the so-called control problem or alignment problem. How do we design AGI systems so that their goals stay aligned with human values, even if they become vastly smarter than us and start pursuing instrumental goals?
Which sounds incredibly difficult.
It's considered one of the hardest problems in the field. How do you specify human values precisely? How do you ensure the AI doesn't find loopholes or misinterpret its objectives in catastrophic ways? Especially when you add pressures like military or economic competition, an AI arms race, pushing for faster development, maybe cutting corners on safety.
Of course, not everyone buys into this level of risk, right? There's skepticism, too.
Definitely. The sources reflect that view as well. Some argue AGI is still so far off that worrying about extinction is a distraction from today's AI problems, like bias or job losses. Others are more fundamentally skeptical, calling the fears overblown, maybe even crypto-religious. And some suggest these risk campaigns might be, consciously or unconsciously, attempts by major players to influence regulation in their favor or just generate hype.
Okay, let's talk about one of those more immediate